the gray is your present building, and all the colors are items that Greg can discuss in a little bit more detail. But this is going to be like the 9th grade two-story classroom addition. And then this is all STEM added on. And then you've got a cafeteria expansion. All the locker rooms are being extended out, and another gym facility. And then we're taking one of the other classrooms and making another family consumer science classroom out of it. So
maybe run you through what these colors mean and kind of have some images of the exterior of the building too. So, and obviously there's a second floor to this plan as well. So if I kind of run you through a little bit of what Tom just said. So from a coloring standpoint, the gray is pretty much your existing building now. And then, yeah, this is kind of a two-story classroom addition, so that's showing up on the second floor here as well. Really, that's the only work that's going on the second floor. There'll be like carpet replacement, and they're rewiring the whole building for like data and stuff. So you're kind of state-of-the-art in terms of technology. But then this green, so we've got kind of a legend here that shows when each of these colors should theoretically start and finish construction. So it's kind of how this is going to be phased. So they'll start with this kind of this spring. You've probably seen, is there a fence up in the parking lot yet? So that's kind of where the contractor would start staging. And there'll be a couple of spots along the back of the building as well in that parking lot as they work around to these additions. But they'll start with this addition this spring, as well as the STEM edition. So those both start at the same time this spring, but then the STEM edition will need to finish just a little bit earlier than the classroom edition, so that you guys can have all of your existing wood shop is right here. That can all move into the addition, and then we'll kind of gut this area, and that'll become like a metals lab, robotics, pre-engineering, which is like CAD computer lab. So pre-engineering then, so once they finish this, then they can move all this to here. Then once this is finished, they can take this computer lab, which is pre-engineering now, move it to here, and that becomes the family consumer science. So there's a lot of kind of dominoes that go into it. So really we're kind of starting on these two corners, and once those are done, then we go to these two corners, so that they're kind of trying to stay out of the way and not doing this and this and blocking the front entry all at once. And then, yeah, this is just an expansion of the current locker rooms, just kind of more of the same coming out. And then this is a PE classroom, which will have a nice big overhead door connecting it to the weight room. So those will be connected. And then, yeah, from an exterior images standpoint, there's obviously a pretty strong visual to this building with a lot of that brick, and there's some rock face brick, and what that material that you see up at the top is called ephes. And it's just kind of an insulated product that looks kind of like a stucco. So we're bringing that along into the new addition. There's a mechanical penthouse above the two-story classroom. So kind of from a visual aesthetic, we were just trying to get everything to really blend into what you have currently.
So is the freshman wing going to be like mostly downstairs, and then like with the classrooms, and
Yeah.
then the upstairs you said is like what exactly?
So the first and second floor will all be classrooms.
Okay.
So the first level here, you'll just go from kind of adjacent to the gyms here. This is all classrooms. Basically, that same classroom layout is the same thing on the second floor. And then above that, so essentially a third floor, is a mechanical mezzanine. So that feeds that whole new addition.
I prepared a small sheet here you can have that lists what the price of the project is. We're up to $18,875,000 here. And we talk about new construction, you've got 83,000 square feet of new addition. And then they've classed 13,000 square feet as heavy renovation. That would be like in here, moving all the shop equipment around. This would be heavy renovation. And then you come up with 260,000 square feet of renovation, and that's all the carpeting is getting replaced, light fixtures are getting replaced in certain areas, so that's the lighter portion.
And a new roof on the majority of the building.
And then the big thing is the completion date to have all this done is 15 July 2021. So if you want these notes, I can leave those with
Okay,
you.
thank you. How long is the freshman wing going to take to be built?
So that should be complete kind of summer of 2020. And then when they get that done, they would move on to these, and kind of these portions, and the consumer, or the family consumer science or what would be finished then in 2021.
We're just leaving right when everything's so nice.
It's really going to be a nice facility when it's all done.
Absolutely.
One thing that Greg worked with the mechanical people back in the STEM area, there's going to be one wall that's glass, and the students will be able to look at that wall and see all the piping and plumbing, electrical, and be able to trace it out and see how systems work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a visual learning area.
So yeah, back in this corridor here, there's kind of this whole wall is glass to be able to see into that construction lab. And then at the end of that wall, what would normally be just a hidden chase for a restroom, a plumbing chase for toilets, is, like Tom said, all glass, so you can see how that is actually laid out and works. And then we've also have kind of an exposed grid ceiling in there to show the piping and ductwork and everything above. We've kind of expressed some of the exposed structure in through there. So since this is all kind of construction related, to kind of show how that all is really working, where typically we hide it all. So.
What kind of difficulties are going to be presented with the project?
A lot of it is kind of what is represented on this in terms of phasing, how being able to get one portion complete in time to then move on to the next. So kind of this needs to be done so we can move out of here, and then we need to finish that so we can move out of here, and then we can do this. That's probably one of the tougher ones on this project. It's nice that it's mostly additions, so that makes it a lot easier for sure, as opposed to if it was heavy renovation, that starts to get pretty difficult.
But there is some inconvenience for the students because we'll have to close off some of the exits and entrances to the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, down here on the Hall of Champions, there's a set of doors down here that I think your early students come through those doors in the morning. Well, you can see the construction's going to block all that off. And back here, there's other doors that are going to be blocked off. So, you know, we have to look out for the safety of the students in case there's an emergency that you can evacuate the building. But we also want to make it safe so by accident you don't walk out into a construction area where there's open trenches and all. So the students are going to have to work with the contractors to make sure the facility gets done quickly but safely.
Where's the Fine Arts edition?
I don't think we have the Flex Learning Classroom, just kind of back here with the STEM.
Okay.
Sorry, we've kind of mentioned that as STEM this whole time. So yeah, this is a really nice large room that's going to be just completely multi-purpose. So it's about 24 feet tall. So we've got the acoustics in there to be able to handle band, choir, just faculty, you know, entire staff meeting, ATC testing. it's a concrete floor, so you can have dance practicing in there. So really, this room is kind of usable by everyone. It's kind of tough to try to get the acoustics to work for band and just normal everyday usages, but that's right back here with that STEM edition.
What kind of what can students expect to see by the end of this year?
By the end of this year, by the end of this school year, as in next month?
Yeah, I guess.
So the contractor is already staging out the parking lot. As Tom had mentioned, kind of a couple of these exits may start to get shut down so that they can start to demo some sidewalks and start to do some earthwork. But really in the next month, the contractor is really getting out on site, prepping things to get going. You're not going to see anything that you might consider true construction. It's just kind of getting things ready in the next month.
I think he plans to remove the soil from
Right.
this area, the sod,
Yeah.
and this area, so that they can get that compacted and start putting their footings in.
So kind of, yeah.
That'll be the first thing that you'll actually see before school's out. And when the students come back next August, some of these walls and steel work should be up and working on.
So right now, a lot of what the contractor is working on, even though you're not seeing anything, is what we call shop drawings, and they're getting everything ready to get the steel on site and the concrete on site. So there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that happens for them just to procure the materials, and they're setting up their schedule with all their subcontractors. So there's a lot going on, even though in the next month you won't maybe see anything besides the sidewalks coming out and some earthwork.
Can I ask a question? How will that affect traffic since it's protruding out? We already have a lot of traffic anyway, and it takes a while to get out of the parking lot. So if they're pushing the building up, then it's gonna affect the street,
This
right?
building is completely within the grass
Oh, is
that's
it?
there now.
It looked a lot bigger. I was expecting it to be protruding out.
That's a good question. We have some site plan that I can show you. This gives you probably a pretty good indication of the overall. So this is that 9th grade classroom wing. And you can see kind of all the work here is within this ring of sidewalk that we have around there currently. The trickiest site component of this is the stem area. The grade falls off quite a bit, so we'll have maybe a little bit more earthwork to do there. But it's pretty flat here, and here, and a cafeteria addition.
And once we get done with the main building inside this area, the student parking lot is the follow-on project. And right now, the principal, the central office, and the architects are working on redesigning the traffic flow. Because as you all know, this intersection is terrible. And then traffic gets backed up on 370. And there's traffic all in front of the stadium area. So
Are they gonna pull it out to this? Is that the idea?
yeah, they're they're going to look at the whole traffic flow, and that's one reason they're sort of waiting on this, is to get the building done, then to tap the parking lot.
How do you have any idea how it's going to flow, or is it just kind of in?
They're looking at all the different high schools in the Omaha area to look and see how Millard West does their parking, and trying to get ideas and working with Mr. Johnson to come up with a good flow. To get the parking lot right now,
That's probably a couple of years out, and another reason for that is, as the contractor's staging here, that potentially gets beat up in there, so you wait until they're done with this project, and we can put in the new parking lot and reconfigured traffic flow and all that.
So is this the only area that's gonna of like parking that's gonna be affected by the construction?
That's where they're starting. As they move back around here, they could potentially take a little bit of the parking on the
Of course, we're
east
lucky
side.
now, we've got the new visitor stadium parking lot, so like some of the staff that get displaced here can move over here.
For the this classroom, are there's going to be are classrooms around it going to be affected?
Nope, that should be pretty much contained to just within that existing engineering lab.
Is the
And
regular
there's a storage room associated with that would be in that renovation.
is the regular school day going to be affected at all? Just besides entrances?
It shouldn't be.
No.
We work really hard to kind of coordinate with the school district to make sure that everything takes place. You know, if there's a water shutdown or an electrical shutdown that needs to occur, that happens on a weekend or over a school break. So the general contractor that's on board is MCL. So they're working real closely with the school district too to be able to anticipate when those will need to happen and schedule accordingly. And luckily, a lot of these additions are, you know, adjacent to a gym or the locker room or the weight room and not classrooms. So any noise that should kind of be part of that construction process should be further away from daily learning spaces.
Why did you come out of retirement to work on this project?
Well, I sort of wanted to come back and help the school district because the director for buildings and grounds, he's got mobilized. He's in the National Guard, so he'll be gone for a year. And I've worked with the architects before. I've worked with a lot of the contractors. And I was the project manager on building the original building in 2010. So I felt that I could come in and help the district and maybe get the projects moving a little bit quicker.
Sorry, the original building was 97, 98.
Yeah,
The
97.
science wing was
Right. I was here for the original and the science one. And
And I worked on the science wing.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Do you guys know how many construction workers you're going to be having here on a daily basis? I mean, it's a large project.
We haven't seen the complete list yet, but I did talk with the superintendent, and he's looking at maybe about 100.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Titans, and have a thrilling rest of your Thursday.
They felt once the project got rolling that maybe about 100 different workers at a time.
And I know that you said you were going to start on the freshman wing first. What's the next step after that?
The freshman wing and the STEM wing kind of start at the same time.
Oh,
And
okay.
STEM would actually need to finish up before the classroom wing. And I'll have all these dates here that you guys can have to kind of show how that phases out throughout the process.
One of the reasons for doing it this way was we didn't want the contractor moving equipment back and forth in front of the front entry with students coming in. So we do these two first, and then we do these two. And that way, it doesn't affect the entry and exit of students from the building.
Also, earlier, I can't remember where it was, but you mentioned something about a third floor. Something would act as a third floor.
It's really just the mechanical penthouse.
Oh,
that's
okay.
up at that level. So
Okay.
you actually have 2 or 3 of those on the existing building
Oh,
now.
okay.
So they get up to about if you go back outside after school today and look back up, you'll see that there's kind of a few spaces that are this lighter material color that kind of get up to the height of the fly loft and all that. And so those
That's
are
where most of the
mechanical
air
spaces.
conditioning equipment
Yep.
is located.
But that's really the only thing that's up there.
Can I keep on asking questions?
Yes, please do.
I'm just like really interested. My sisters are younger, so they're gonna be here when it's like when it's like all done. So you were talking about how like you're gonna have like a glass like wall and you're gonna be able to like see some of the stuff on the inside. Is there a reason why you're doing that?
Yeah, with it being the kind of this wing here is more construction trade oriented, so to be able to show the kids a real life explanation of this is what the plumbing chase looks like and how things go together, and we'll have everything labeled in there too as to
Oh, that's
this
cool.
valve and that.
Yeah, that's super cool.
You'd be surprised how much is above this ceiling.
I can only
That
imagine.
no one really sees.
Yep.
But we'll make it visible for the students so they can tell the difference between fire alarm wiring and normal wiring, and it'll all be visible.
Do either of you two get like a weird sense of like nostalgia, like while working on this, considering you've both worked on the site before?
It definitely makes it easy to just kind of hit the ground running when you start the project because you know the building really well already. So it kind of makes you feel a little old too. Like that was 10 years ago. But no, yeah, it's great to be able to work on a project kind of multiple times and see how what you did a decade ago has actually functioned and if it's worked the way that you hoped and how we can improve on that.
I don't think I have anything else.
All right. I guess just take a